Welcome back to Disney Disasters, the show where I put my mind, body, and general sanity on the line in the interest of reviewing and critiquing every Disney Channel original movie. Today's disaster is the past brought future with the sci-fi movie from 1999 known as Zenon, Girl from the 21st Century. Let's start the damage control. Going into Zenon, I wasn't expecting much, with the best I was hoping for was some dumb sci-fi fun. Creative designs, wacky situations, and a strong protagonist is what something like this needs to pull it together, and if one element of this wasn't full of style and fun, it would become a real slog. This is the real danger of these lesser Disney movies, not so much of being horribly terribly bad, but being horribly terribly bland. However, with the promises of space adventures and teenage troublemakers, what could go wrong with Zenon? Unfortunately, because of this series, it's my job to find out what did go wrong. So let's get into it with Zenon, Girl of the 21st Century. The story of Zenon is very much what you'd expect, and for the most part this isn't a bad thing. Zenon is a 13-year-old girl living in a space station/research base in the year 2049. While she gets into a lot of mischief, she's basically a good kid. So when she catches a shady businessman/owner of the space station up to no good, she decides to follow him. After she gets caught and nobody believes her, she's shipped off to live with her auntie back on the planet Earth and has to adjust to life on this foreign planet. She also has to fall in love with some dude because, hey, we've got an hour and a half to kill. Meanwhile, the businessman and his sidekick who dresses like actual Satan are planning on destroying the space station for the insurance money, and it's up to Zenon to stop them. Basically, it's a half-decent, by-the-numbers story, so it's up to the execution to pull it together. And there's one main problem with the execution, and that's the Earth angle. For 25 minutes, we get used to the space station's fun sci-fi environment, before Zenon gets shipped down to 2049's Earth. Which is basically just Earth. Yeah, there's even a line in the movie where Zenon's aunt says, "Oh, that future stuff is in the big cities, like Boston and New York. This town's known for its rustic vibe." This could have been a statement about how technology advances quicker in different classes to make it more of a shell shock to Zenon on how in the past Earth is, but let's be real, it was just so they could save money on sci-fi effects. It's a lot easier to make a movie about a girl from space than it is to make a movie about a girl in space. Though this isn't really an excuse if it makes the movie worse, and it kind of does. But it doesn't necessarily ruin it, and the reason for this is the performances. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. This is where Zenon gets messy compared to some of the other Disney disaster movies. This is because whether Zenon's on Earth or in the space station, it mostly works, and this is due to the performances. The actress playing Zenon is quite solid in the role, and her character is actually worth following. Sure, some of the teenage girl antics and future slang does get annoying at times, but it never becomes overwhelming, and is offset with some genuinely decent future designs and a nice color palette thrown in there. She behaves and acts like a realistic 13-year-old girl, but she has enough heart and good intentions that the character doesn't get annoying like I feared it would. It is surprisingly hard to write a kid character to be tolerable, and to this film's credit, it succeeds. Zenon's friends consist of Nebula, her sidekick on the space station, and Greg, the Earth boy she becomes smitten with. They're both pretty forgettable, but at least they serve as a good springboard for Zenon. The movie also uses Greg and Zenon's flourishing relationship so that Zenon can learn about Earth in an interesting way, so that's a plus. So, much like the plot, the characters just kind of work well enough, and this is where reviewing these Disney disasters gets kinda rough. The thing you have to realize about these Disney Channel originals is I'm grading them on a curve. This series isn't about me watching bad movies for the sake of it. It's about seeing the good in these projects that I'm sure is in there. I'm thinking about what kids could get from these movies, how much fun they can get out of it, and what lessons they can learn. I'm also seeing what went wrong, whether mistakes were made due to lack of talent, money, resources, or just plain lack of effort. But the thing with Zenon is, everyone kinda brought their A-game. The money went to the right places, making interesting backgrounds, sets, and outfits for the space station. Actors all brought their A-game, the writers just didn't give them enough to work with. And even with the writers, they didn't do a horrible job, they told a good enough story, but it's just kind of good enough. And while I may be giving a lot of stuff with the actors and the sets a pass, I'm not saying these things are great, because they simply aren't. All I'm saying is, they did exactly what they wanted to do. And what they wanted to do was make a serviceable, sci-fi-esque movie for young girls to watch, and they very much accomplished that. In terms of an actual movie, I've seen big Hollywood movies make more mistakes in terms of plot, acting, and characterizations, but it's still just kinda middle of the road. But in terms of a Disney disaster, it's exactly what it needs to be. But this does present a problem for me in terms of the Disney disasters ranking order. Yes, Zenon accomplishes what it needs to with a simple and straightforward plotline. However, High School Musical is more competent as a movie technically, but it has some flaws with the plot and characters because it shoots higher. So, what wins out? Is it the movie that does something simple and does it well enough, or is it a movie that goes for more and fails? Overall, I'm gonna say High School Musical stays at the top, due to the fact that while it has serious plot and character issues, it is first and foremost a musical, which means the plot does take a back seat. Zenon may be good for a Disney disaster, but it isn't good enough to dethrone the high school overlords. Speaking of Zenon though, I do want to reiterate how good it is that they struck that balance between Zenon being a kinda bratty troublemaker protagonist and being an actual good, kind-hearted person. I mean, could you imagine having to sit through a movie like this where your protagonist is just the worst? Oh, fuck no.